Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you a simple demo to know a little bit more about the HSV or hue saturation value ColorSpace. So what I did, I combined the demo that we have on the OpenCV tutorials for RGB ColorSpace. I added the hue saturation value element to it. And we're going to have three sliders that when we move them, we're going to change the value of hue saturation values of an image, and then an on-off switch, which is actually another slider that can only have zeros and ones. And then when the switch is on and I change my hue saturation values, it is going to show an image which is the combination of those hue saturation values. And by moving the sliders, you can see the effect of adding or removing the saturation, the value, and the hue. So for that, I need OpenCV and I need NumPy. And in order to create the sliders, I need this method under CV2 called create a trackbar. A trackbar or slider is the only what we call widget, the only tool that is automatically available in CV2. We don't have toggle buttons or other things, although here with a slider that only goes from 0 to 1, I can literally make a switch, but the slider is the only thing or widget that we have. If you want to add more advanced options and graphics, you have to use the modules that are available for creating GUIs, graphical user interfaces, and that is going to be an upcoming video in this channel. So here I'm going to create four sliders using create trackbar. One of them I call it H, one of them call S, the other one call V, and the other one I call switch. Now this command here, this CV create trackbar, has 5 inputs in general. What are these 5 inputs? The first one is the name of the trackbar. So here I call it HSV. The second one is the window that this trackbar is going to be attached to. So for that, here initially I have created a CV2 name window and I call it image. And so each one of these sliders is going to be attached to this window called image. Okay, so I create a name window called image. Every one of these is going to be attached to it. The third option is the default value or the initial value. In this case, you can also call it the smallest value that this variable out of this slider can have. The next number is the maximum value it can take over. Now for HSV ColorSpace, it's not exactly like RGB or BGR. In BGR or RGB, the maximum and minimum are 0 and 255. Here, the minimum is 0, but the maximum for value and saturation are 255, but for hue is 180. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and I have added that here. So, and then the last one is a function that would be called and will be executed when you move the slider. Now, in our case, we don't want to do anything. We just want that slider to move, and then the number that will read off of this slider, the current value, the current position, we'll get it later using these guys called get track position, trackbar position. So when we move the slider, we don't want it to do anything. So we create a function called nothing that will really do nothing, and that is going to be called every time we move this. Now, what is this function nothing? You see here I defined it, def nothing, and all I pass to it is the command pass, actually. You might be surprised. There is a command called pass in Python, and it's basically doing nothing. It's like a placeholder for future code. If later you want to put some future code, you don't have that code right now, you can just say pass so that it is executed but not affecting anything, not doing anything. Right? And later you can replace it with whatever you want. In this case, I'm not going to do anything ever, so I just leave it as pass, and so this function is not going to do anything. So this is how I create the sliders for hue saturation value. For switch, it's going to be the same, except the maximum value is 1, and 1 is when the switch is on, 0 is when the switch is off, and then the text for it, the name for it, I make it something like this: 0 when it's off, and then go to the next line and show 1 when it's on. Now I say while 1, so I use an infinite loop here. Of course, I have here the control to break the infinite loop, but here I say go in an infinite loop, and every time on that window called image, show my image BGR. Now here I have not read the positions yet. So what is this image BGR going to be? If I have not read anything yet from these sliders, what am I going to show? Well, initially I'm going to show a black image. Why? Because I assume that my sliders are all at 0, and when the hue saturation value are at 0, the image is going to be black. So that black image I created with a bunch of zeros from NumPy. The size of the image is 300 by 412, and 3 channels, and the numbers are all uint8. I also, my HSV image, which I need later, I make it the same as the BGR, and I make it all black. Okay, so the first thing I do, I go to that image window and I show that black image, because right now I have not moved any slider yet. Everything at 0, so it is going to show the black image. Then I check whether the user is asking to stop the basically the GUI here, and I look at which key is pressed, and if the key is pressed is 27, which is for escape. If the user is clicking on the escape from the keyboard, I'm going to break the while loop, so I'm going to get out of the program. Now if the user is not using escape and the user now starts to move the sliders to the left or right, what am I going to do? I'm going to read the current value, the current position of the H, S, and V, as well as the switch. And then if the switch value is 0, guess what? I'm going to leave my BGR image as all blacks. Else, if the switch is on, then what? Then this H, S, and V that I read, I'm gonna concatenate them and call them the HSV image. And then I'm gonna convert my HSV image to BGR image using CV2 color, and the argument is color underscore HSV to BGR. So I collect my HSV values, make an HSV image, convert it to BGR image, and then that BGR image in the next iteration of the loop is going to be shown as my image. And when everything is over, and when this loop is over because I pressed on escape, then I'm going to destroy all windows, right? So I hope it's clear what is being done over here. So let's go ahead and run it. So this is going to be that window, and now you see the switch is off, so it's just going to show black. Now if I turn the switch on, still it's going to be black because these values are at 0. Now I start my sliders, so I go from very dark image, because value is the intensity. From black, I go all the way to what? White. So you see value is what? Is the amount of light intensity, whether it's dark or white. But there is no color right now. It's just shades of gray. The next thing is saturation, and then we have hue. So let me show you hue, and then after hue, I'll show you saturation. Hue is the different colors. When I'm at 0, right? Let me go to the max. When I'm at 0, the color is what? Red. So hue of 0 means red color. And as I move from left to right, you see, then I move at around 9 or 10, I start to go into the orange region. As I move toward like 20 something, I'm now around yellow region. As I move to 30 something, now I'm going to the green region. Then I move forward to around, you see how big the green region is. Then I go into now 90, I start to turn blue. Then I move forward, and you see blue region is also big. Now into 140 or so, I'm at purple. And then 150, I get pink. Then I move forward, and then I go back to kind of dark pinkish, so on, and then I go back to red. You see, so it's like a loop, basically. You start from red and you go back to red. So these are different different colors. Now let's say I'm at blue, right? You see, this is very bright blue and very saturated. Now, if I reduce the saturation, the very bright dynamic color is now going to be washed out. Look. So when it goes to 0, you literally have no color left. It's completely washed out. If I go back, you see this is kind of blue, but like a blue shirt that you have washed it so many times, it has lost a ton of its color, right? When I go forward, it's going to be richer blue. There is more blue in it. It's very rich. When I go back, it's very what? Kind of washed out, right? But if you look at this, you see, I'm not going to make it washed out. I'm just going to make it darker. Or so when the value is 0 at blue, I'm at black. When the saturation is 0 at blue, I'm at white. That's the difference between saturation and what? Value. Saturation is the richness of the color. Value is just the light intensity. And hue is, of course, the color. And whenever I go back in, I can turn everything off. Okay, and whenever I push on the escape button, which I'm gonna do right now, the whole thing would disappear like that. So this is a simple GUI that I made for you using CV2 Create Trackbar, which is quite a bit interesting and intuitive and teach you about the meaning of hue, saturation, and value. So hopefully you liked it, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Thank you.